How to unlock your creative genius. Many of the great masters before us have shared at length about our relationship with God regarding who and what we are. They've talked at length about the unmovable, silent, still nature we find in ourselves and how this takes us into a relationship with God. There's another side of God to be discovered. It's a God that's in motion. This motion is a creative side of God. If you look at the word God, you can interchange it with the word creator, because God is the ultimate creator. What I'm speaking of is the creative side of God, the discovery and awareness of God through creation. The movement of God is the innate intelligence within all that we create. Creative ideas that come to you are the breath that God breathes into your body, mind, and spirit. And our relationship with God and creation is about movement, not an understanding or knowing about. We constantly seek to understand or know about, but in all of our needing to knows, we miss the mark. Creativity lives in all of us. All we ever really need to do is to move the energy that resides within. All this energy or drive is never given to the wrong person. It is a gift that is designed for you from God. When we allow the movement of God to drive our life, we enhance our relationship with God. When we create, we enable the completion of God's gifts. This is the very purpose of form. It's the completion of God's expression. Most creative endeavors begin with an enlightenment. I'm going to do this or that. That's the nudge that we are given to start moving towards creating something. As we set out, we sit in front of a great abyss in wonder. Sometimes we ask ourselves, how am I going to do this thing that has come to my mind? Any great creator will tell you it's by starting with the foundation and working our way up from there. However, the key ingredient in creating is our willingness to move. As we begin to move towards our creation, the how and the why slip away, and we get lost in the act of creation. We immerse ourselves and become lost in God. When we finish our creation, we often step back and marvel at what's sitting in front of us, and this is the pure joy of creating. One of the things we must come to understand is that we are not responsible for creation. Creation is God's domain. We are the completion of creation, but we're not responsible for it. We think that when we get an idea in our mind that we're seeing the beginning of creation, but in actuality, we're seeing the end of creation. 99% of creation happens in its formless state, and the last 1% is us completing it here in the physical realm. God has worked out all the possibilities and resources we need to complete our creations before we're ever given the idea to create something. On the path of creation, there are no bumps on the road. When we enter God's grace, she paves the way for a smooth ride. It's us that gets in the way and creates all the bumps. When creation is coming through, all one ever needs to do is rest and reflect. For you are the vehicle that she works through. Just like when you get into a car, you never have to apply effort to get to where you want to be. You just rest and push the gas pedal and let the car do all the work. God offers her gift of creation in a similar way. She pours herself through you. All you need to do is rest, and she'll do all the work. We need to let God be the one that drives and creates as we dive deeper and deeper into creation. When God's grace of creation is flowing through us, we can even surrender our bodies and allow God to take over the movements, our physical movements as well. When we devote and surrender 100% of ourselves to the movement of creation, we fall into the silent nature of God. In this silent nature, we harness the true power of God in creation. The realm of impossibility completely vanishes from our minds, and we are given the ability to see a way to complete the most seemingly impossible tasks. This is the age-old story of heroism. One sets out on an impossible journey and she wins. Somewhere in the storyline you'll always read that they surrendered themselves, and in their most difficult times they were shown a way and succeeded in the end. Love is an intricate part of creation. When we love what we're doing, our connection to God's grace is amplified. It ultimately and profoundly alters our ability to make that deep connection with God and to channel God's creative power through us. When we embrace our creations with love, we send special invitations to God, asking her to join us in our creations. Love is currency in creation. It adds value and depth to what we create. The more love we channel into our creations, the more value they contain. It's not a monetary value that I am speaking of. The value our creations contain is a window into God's domain. When our creations are co-created with God, the viewer can see God's reflection in them. The reflection they see has the power to spark an awakening in them, for it can cause the viewer to become aware of their own divinity and omnipotence. That is one of the highest goods we can achieve when co-creating with God. The creations that God moves through us can move others. We can use creation to enliven our love and to awaken the spark of divinity sitting in your soul. The unique quality of love's expansive nature in our creations is that it touches people wherever they're at, and it opens them a little further. Love and devotion creates a forward motion in us. It can speed up our evolution with our creative abilities. It can also push us over plateaus we find ourselves entrapped in. During our times of struggle while creating, we've lost sight of the love of creation, and we've separated ourselves from God's ability to create through us. This is an example of how we place bumps in the road. Creation and love have their own well-defined attributes. Alone, each one is full of depth and beauty. When we merge them together, our co-creative abilities are exponentially increased. With the insertion of love in our creations, we tap into the limitless nature of creation, opposed to trying to force creativity and execute our creations on our own. To create without God limits our ability to the finite nature of our minds and our limited experiences. It's natural when we first begin to create that doubt and worry and fear arise. However, we must abandon these ideas, for they diminish our connection with God and our ability to channel a co-creation with her. All one ever needs to do is to invite God to use you as a vehicle to create through. Our minds often want to track, review, judge, and criticize the things that we do. Do not succumb to this. Our lives are meant to be a collaborative, co-creating endeavor with the presence of God in our heart and mind. Ponder that for a moment. Making our life a co-creating endeavor with God calls us to action. It calls you to put your cellular devices down, shut off your computers, and get involved with life. In our collaboration with God, we can create our lives in a more effortless manner. Our destiny is not only effortless, but it's joyful along the way. A creative life is one that never becomes redundant. The nature of creativity is about exploring and expressing. Allow creation and love to play a part in your life. In your allowance, you will discover how God can move through you.